Good afternoon and welcome to RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. On the president's schedule for the remainder of the day are numerous policy meetings inside the Oval Office. Right now, all meetings are currently closed to the press. Of course, we'll keep an eye out for any breaking news or developing news across our country and around the world. Meantime, joining us now is the president of Americans for Citizen Voting, Abby Foronberry. Thank you so much for joining us, Abby.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Definitely. Can you tell us about your organization and then also tell us a little bit more about your story?
Absolutely. So the organization that I'm affiliated with, purely as a passion project, is basically trying to clarify something that many Americans believe already exists, which is that only a U.S. citizen should be allowed to vote in federal elections. So right now, the Constitution doesn't explicitly say that only a U.S. citizen can vote. And that's what we're trying to change. And my personal story involves citizenship as well. I'm a naturalized citizen, originally born in Brazil to Brazilian parents. And, the only reason I became a U.S. citizen was to have the right to vote. So the thought of somebody who hasn't gone through those same steps being able to weigh in is a little disconcerting.
Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about the Save America Act in just a minute, but just to have the freedoms you have here in the States, and then you see all the turmoil over the years in Brazil. What is that like, though? Because obviously it's still where you were born. That's still technically your homeland. So what is that like to, even though your homeland is the United States, but to see so much back and forth between Bolsonaro and Lula and all the things and all the people there? Great Portuguese-speaking people in Brazil, loving freedom, but don't have as much.
No, and what's really challenging there is something that I have warned Americans about for years that's kind of happening in our country, which is that when you effectively eliminate a middle class and you categorize people into either rich or poor, it becomes a real problem. And I do understand why a lot of people come to this country seeking opportunities, because for instance, in Brazil, if you're born in a certain class system, you cannot work your way through. There is no opportunity for you. Whereas in the United States, you have that chance. So I get why people want to come to this country. I just want to make sure that people who are voting in our elections are not only informed voters, but have the vested interest of this country in mind. When I got my citizenship, I had to renounce my Brazilian citizenship. I had to pledge my allegiance to America. So, not that it's probable or likely, but if it's ever Brazil versus the US, guess what? I'm on the side of US. That is what citizenship does. It validates where your allegiance lies.
And let's just talk about some of the common sense, maybe questions some people are having, including myself. When you're a dual citizen, though, is that you renounce the other, but you're still a dual citizenship? How does that work?
I'm not sure. Brazil actually doesn't recognize dual citizenship. And as far as I know, the United States doesn't either, because they actually took my Brazilian passport as part of my citizenship process, which I understand. It gets really dicey, especially if you get into heated political climates. And I think it makes sense, just as I'm not going to invite my next door neighbors to come in and weigh on my family budget, it makes sense that only the people within that home, i.e. America, should be able to weigh in on its decisions.
Speaking of America, so the organization that you're with, the Americans for Citizen Voting, you're talking about informing voters on all of this. Can you talk to us about what you guys have done to help just shed light on that truth?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things we're doing, obviously, is bringing to light the fact that non-citizens are currently voting. I know that, some sides like to be divisive about this, call it a fear-based tactic, et cetera. But the reality is that we have non-citizen voting happening in our nation's capital. DC is one of the cities that currently allows this. And basically, if you allow a non-citizen to vote in these legislative elections, these non-citizens are kind of grandfathered in and allowed to vote in federal elections. And that is what is in our Constitution right now. It's Article 1, Section 2 of the 17th Amendment. A lot of people aren't well versed in the Constitution, myself being one of them. But what we're seeking to do with the U.S. Citizen Voting Amendment is create that definition, that definitive baseline of who has the right to vote in the United States. So we're passing House Resolution House Joint Resolution 152. I want to make sure I have that correct. It's a one-page document. You can go to uscva.org. People can read this for themselves. There's nothing hidden. There's nothing sideswipey. This is a nonpartisan issue. In fact, it's one of the few 90-10 nonpartisan issues that exist out there. Naturalized citizens like myself, Democrats, Republican, overwhelmingly are in support that only a U.S. citizen should vote. And again, a lot of people are under the false assumption that that already exists, and it doesn't. And if we have a moment, I wanted to harp on one other thing, which you mentioned the SAVE Act, and we have gotten lumped in a lot with the SAVE Act, which I understand. There's a lot of press behind it, but the SAVE Act is partisan. Democrats are not necessarily big fans of this. And ultimately, the SAVE Act is about enforcement. So it's requiring proof of citizenship when registering to vote. But ultimately, the SAVE Act can be appealed. It can be removed if political winds shift. What we are trying to do with Joint House Resolution 152 is create this so that it cannot be amended or changed in the future, that it is going to be a U.S. consensus decision that will permanently, ratify our Constitution to state what everybody assumes it already does.
Well put. Thank you for the insight on that. Speaking of insight, you said something about Brazil, and I'm just curious about it because we've interviewed a number of great Brazilians here, Ricardo Martins and others that, just obviously love their country. They're in the United States. They want the best for that nation. But you were saying the different classes that you're brought up in, then you have no way to advance in a different kind of class, obviously different than here in the States. Can you explain that a little bit? Is it just he said, she said, this person was born there, so don't hire them? Or tell us a little bit about that.
So really, it's hard for us to understand because we're afforded so many opportunities naturally just by birth here. But what happened is I came from a very poor family. In fact, my mom likes to joke that we were POR poor because we couldn't afford the other O. Okay. Wow. So just very, very different circumstances. The home that my grandmother lived in at one point in time, the poorest person in America would not live in such terrible conditions. So ultimately, if you're a person that grows up not having the means, education is not provided to you. There aren't student loans available to you so that you can get a secondary degree or advance yourself. You're trapped into working. In fact, my mom herself was working full time at age 12. She attended night school just to get a basic education and was working during the day to help support her family. So when you have a system like that, time, money, resources, those things are not available to you. Whereas in the United States, if you're a student that works hard, you do really well in school, you have multiple opportunities for scholarships or through athletics, even being able to take out a student loan. So that's the kind of thing where, because my family did so well here, my mom married my stepdad, who's an American, and he raised me, from the time I was 6. And because they did so well here, they were able to provide things for my family in Brazil that we would not have had otherwise. So my aunt was able to come to the United States with a visa. She was able to study English. That afforded her exponential opportunities for work in Brazil. My grandmother was moved to a nice condo in a safe place. So, I understand the pull, the allure, the love of this country. And I think that's all the more reason why people need to join within the right parameters and truly know what it means to be an American.
100%. The president of Americans for Citizen Voting, Abby Foronberry, thank you for your insight and spending your time with us here on Right Side this afternoon.
Thank you for your time.
Definitely. All right, that was awesome to speak with Abby there. Again, with the Americans for Citizen Voting. As we start our broadcast, we're about 10 minutes into it right now. So we're seeing a number of things go on, of course, in the 24/7 news cycle. Let's go to a number of sponsors here in a second. Director, can you repeat that? Okay, let's go to mypillow.com/RSBN. Of course, you see right there the warehouse moving sale. Save up to 80% on quality products. That's a pretty good win-win situation. And I always add that third win for the trifecta, where this is a conservative, right side of history business there, mypillow.com, of course. And, of course, Mike Lindell running for governor in Minnesota, and a huge fan favorite here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, especially over the years since 2015 until now and into the future, as Mike's been on the broadcast several times. But outside of that, his products are great. And there's the warehouse moving sale. So just go to mypillow.com/RSBN. You'll save up to 80%. Speaking of some money, if you'd like to donate to Right Side, all you have to do is go to rsbnetwork.com/donate. rsbnetwork.com/donate, as we provide you with a lot of the political events that you see out there, perfectly talking about it right there. You see the Vice President and the President of the United States, of course. We were just in Arizona the other day, but also moving forward with more of those kind of events here at the network. But also, whenever we hear that the President is doing an event at the White House, we have that live coverage for you. We also have interviews, analysis, commentary, covering the 24/7 news cycle from a perspective that is like yours, in the sense of the majority of the United States of America, we the people. We love God, family, and country. It's pretty simple stuff. It's common sense, not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. You know what I mean? How the mainstream media likes to do that. We're a lot different than that here in conservative media. So thanks so much for live streaming in, or if you're watching on replay today, as we get ready to cover whatever President Trump does, but also, again, a lot of stories that are happening in that news cycle. So if you'd like to donate, just go to rsbnetwork.com/donate. All right, so just yesterday, the Department of Justice held a press conference. Let's take a look at a portion of that from clip number 1.
Good afternoon. Today, a few minutes ago, in the Middle District of Alabama, a grand jury returned an 11-count indictment charging the Southern Poverty Law Center with 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of bank fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. According to the charges in the indictment, the SPLC is a nonprofit entity that purports to fight white supremacy and racial hatred by reporting on extremist groups and conducting research to inform law enforcement groups with the goal of dismantling these groups. As the indictment describes, the SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred. The indictment describes this conduct in detail, but one troubling example is that the SPLC was paying a member of the leadership group that planned the Unite the Right protest in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017 that resulted in the death of 1 person and injured dozens more. This particular person being paid by the SPLC allegedly received approximately $270,000 over the course of 8 years. In total, according to the indictment, between 2014 and 2023, SPLC paid at least $3 million to 8 individuals at least. These individuals were affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan, United Klans of America, National Socialist Movement, Aryan Nations affiliated Sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club, the Nationalist Socialist Party of America, Nazis, and the American Front. Now, as the indictment lays out, after SPLC paid members of these extremist groups, it created work product that reported on these activities that the members participated in or contributed to. And to that end, it was doing the exact opposite of what it's told its donors it was doing. Not dismantling extremism, but funding it. To carry out this scheme, SPLC created bank accounts in the name of at least 5 completely fictitious organizations that had no bona fide employees or legitimate business purpose. The money was passed from SPLC to one sham account to a second sham account and then loaded onto prepaid cards to give to the members of the extremist groups. This was designed to shield the source of those funds, and because of this, SPLC is also charged with 1 count, as I said earlier, of conspiracy to commit money laundering. In conclusion, I want to thank the acting U.S. Attorney in the Middle District of Alabama, Kevin Davidson, who's in his district right now and not able to be with us, for bringing this important case, along with the FBI team in Alabama for their hard work during this investigation. This investigation is ongoing, and I'd like to ask Director Patel to say a few words as well.
Thank you, General Blanche. What we're here today is to announce what the General just told you. The Southern Poverty Law Center, in a massive, sweeping indictment, has been charged with allegations of fraud and using the banking system to perpetrate that fraud. I just want to talk about a couple of brief things here. The Southern Poverty Law Center themselves advertise to raise money to dismantle violent extremist groups for a period of at least a decade. They use their donor network to raise money to purportedly dismantle violent extremist groups. However, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, used the money they raised from their donor network to actually pay the leadership of these very groups. I just want to say that again. They used the fraudulently raised money by lying to their donor network, thousands of Americans, to go ahead and actually pay the leadership of these supposed violent extremist groups. The groups, as the General laid out, include the Ku Klux Klan, the United Klans of America, Unite to Right, National Alliance, the National Socialist Movement, the Aryan Nation Motorcycle Club, and the National Socialist Party of America, and also the American Front. In at least one of these matters, our investigation revealed that funds were used to facilitate the commission of further state and federal offenses, totaling over $3 million. Furthermore, our investigation revealed that the Southern Poverty Law Center, on top of perpetuating this widespread, decade-long, multi-million-dollar fraud, conducted more criminal activity. They attempted to hide their criminal activity from our financial banking network. They set up shell companies and entities around America so that the financial institutions that we rely on as everyday Americans were deceived in believing that money was not coming from the Southern Poverty Law Center in the perpetration of this scheme and fraud, but rather fictitious entities they stood up to perpetuate this ongoing fraud. This is a serious and egregious violation of a group that purported to dismantle violent extremist groups, but in turn actually only fueled the hatred. This is an important case brought by President Trump's administration. We're thankful for the president for his leadership and funding of not just the FBI and DOJ, but his commitment to go out there and wipe out fraud and conspiracy and waste and abuse wherever it occurs, including the Southern Poverty Law Center. Even though this money was made to appear to be coming from legitimate people and legitimate entities, we at the FBI, with our great partners at the Department of Justice and in the state of Alabama, were able to comb through a decade worth of material, a scheme that took a decade to build, so that we were able to follow the money, because money never lies, and they got caught. As the Attorney General said, these charges are varying, they are widespread and wide-ranging, and this investigation is very much ongoing. Today we're here to announce the charges of the Southern Poverty Law Center, and this investigation and the individuals who are responsible will be brought to justice. Thank you, General.
Thank you, Director Patel. With any questions?
I'd like to know why individual people are not mentioned in this indictment. Is that something that's going to come down the pike? Is this just an indictment of the entity? Can you kind of explain, could people face charges here, or is this the indictment and you're done?
So, yes, I mean, as we said, the indictment, this investigation is very much ongoing. And today, the grand jury returned an indictment against only one entity, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and we'll go from there. But as you'll see from the indictment itself, it should be obvious from the indictment that the investigation is ongoing.
And I just want to make sure I understand. You're alleging that the Southern Poverty Law Center was paying the leaders of KKK and other groups to continue their operations? Is that?
I'm not alleging it. The grand jury returned an indictment that says that. And so what the investigation found, according to the indictment that was returned today, is that they were paying. So the Southern Poverty Law Center is raising money, asking folks to give them money to dismantle racism. And over a very long period of time, they were using some of the money they raised from donors to pay to, they called them field, basically to informants, for information, for access, to just pay them for certain, to do certain things. And so, yes, that's exactly what the indictment charges.
I was wondering.
All right, so we'll return to the DOJ press conference within the 24/7 news cycle in just a minute as we get ready to have some more live interviews and a number of various topics and stories out there as we cover the news of the day here on Right Side. Let's go to All Family Pharmacy in the meantime. allfamilypharmacy.com. We're right in the middle of peak allergy season, and for a lot of people, it's hitting hard right now. Congestion, fatigue, and that rundown feeling that seems to come out of nowhere. And it's not just the symptoms, it's how hard it affects and how it affects everything else. Your sleep, your energy, your focus throughout the day. Most of the time it hits before you've had a chance to prepare. It's something we see year after year. That's why more Americans are starting to prepare ahead instead of reacting last minute. And you can do that with All Family Pharmacy, where you can get access to common allergy medications like nasal sprays and inhalers, along with other prescriptions people rely on this time of year. The process is simple. You go online, you fill out a quick medical form, a licensed doctor reviews it, and if appropriate, your medication ships straight to your door. There's no extra steps, no running around, just a simpler way to handle allergy season and have what you need on hand. So all you have to do is visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use that RSBN 10 promo code to save 10% today. That's allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, code RSBN 10. Let's go to our next sponsor here on Right Side. You see Birch Gold Group. Specifically, when the dollar's convertibility into gold ended in 1971, gold was fixed at $35 an ounce. If you fast forward to today, the U.S. dollar has lost over 85% of its purchasing power. Gold, on the other hand, has increased in value by more than 12,000%. That's why central banks are buying gold at record levels. And here at RSBN, we're encouraging you to consider diversifying your savings with physical gold from Birch Gold Group. But it starts with education. Birch Gold just announced their Learn and Earn Precious Metals event. This free online event rewards you for learning the basics of investing in precious metals. And if you sign up, you'll get free silver on your next purchase. Get even larger incentives as you go. So the more you learn, the more you can earn. But you must act now, as this special event only runs through April 30th, so you got about 8 days until the end. The dollar lost its anchor in 1971. You don't have to lose yours. Text the word Trump to the number you see on your screen there, 989898. You'll be joining Birch Gold's Learn and Earn Precious Metals event by April 30th. Again, text Trump to 989898 today. You'll get that free info kit as well, as it's 23 minutes after the top of the hour, high noon, 12:22, as you see on your screen there. Let's go back to the Department of Justice as we are seeing this press conference that happened just yesterday, as we're continuing covering a number of stories within the 24/7 news cycle.
If this is going to expand perhaps to more groups, perhaps there's been a lot of accusations about particular groups like the Patriot Front that get a lot of traction. And more so, is the government, or is this indictment, I should say, making the case that some of these matters where they've tried at great lengths to sort of make connections to people on the right Charlottesville was very much associated by the media with being sort of like part of a right-wing kind of thing, they're like good people on both sides type of thing. I mean, are we seeing a sort of the Southern Poverty Law Center was trying to create narratives using these types of groups to shape American public opinion?
Look, I think what the Southern Poverty Law Center has said over the years is available for the world to see. It's on their website. It's in other forums. The indictment speaks for itself. I'm not going to talk outside the four corners of the indictment. It lays out what the grand jury found, and obviously there's a whole body of public information around what the Southern Poverty Law Center has done over the past several decades. Alex?
I mean, in some of these instances, these are groups that have been either their membership has been dismantled or they've definitely fallen out of public view. I'm just wondering the legal theory of how, these payments allegedly went on to actually benefit the groups. Did you see the money go to the groups themselves rather than just the individuals who were paid informants, essentially? And then I have an off-topic after.
So look, I want to be careful to keep any comments that we make inside the indictment. And so what the indictment lays out is payments to individuals who had leadership positions within these organizations. If that's what the grand jury found. And so to the extent that those individuals receiving, one received over $1 million, okay, to the extent over several years, to the extent that there's any link between that individual receiving the money and benefits to that organization, that's not in the indictment. But because again, it's not that individual who's charged with a crime. It's that individual was a informant or what have you. And it's Southern Poverty Law Center that made those payments to the individual. But it wasn't, look, the payments were not made to these individuals in exchange for a service separate and apart from their work within these organizations. So, that's I think speaks for itself.
Just on an off topic, obviously you've read the Atlantic article that's now a subject of a defamation lawsuit brought by
I absolutely did not read that article, but go ahead with your question.
I just, without, obviously it's up in litigation now, have you separately just heard any concerns, given your supervision over the FBI director, about any problems with drinking?
I have a lot of concerns, and my concerns are completely around the anonymous reporting that comes forth constantly. That reporters have an obligation to report, and they have due diligence that they're supposed to do. And when an entire article is based on anonymous sources, and there's things in the article suggesting, for example, apparently that senior DOJ personnel were informed of something, that's me. I wasn't informed. No one called me about that. So, listen, I did not read that article. It is the subject of litigation, but I've already spent too much time talking about it. Next question. Go ahead.
On that, Todd, I'm sorry. The FBI director is on camera with the U.S. Olympic hockey team chugging a beer. Do you think that that's appropriate conduct for the FBI director?
That has nothing to do with the article. Look, there's complete hit pieces, and you guys are in this business, and you know what they look like, and the fact that you're asking repeated questions about them almost as an admission of such. But when you have a bunch of people who are hiding behind closed curtains, saying things but not willing to say it publicly, and there's certain parts of the article that are blatantly false because apparently I was told something that I wasn't, it's suspicious. In the back.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Attorney General. Can you explain again what the fraud is here exactly? Are you saying it's illegal for the SPLC to pay money to people that are in hate groups, or something about the way this was done makes it illegal? Because it's not automatically illegal, is it?
No, that's right. It's a good question. So, again, I summarized the indictment, and it's now public for everybody to read. But the Southern Poverty Law Center is a 501c3. Okay, they're required to, under the laws associated with a nonprofit, to have certain transparency and honesty in what they're telling donors they're going to spend money on, and what their mission statement is, and what they're raising money doing. And so, as the indictment points out, there's different ways that they raise money, and in no fundraising efforts that the investigation found did they say, oh, and by the way, we're going to give $1 million to the Ku Klux Klan. So that's fraud. So that's wire fraud. So, and then the bank fraud part of it is you have KYC, you have an obligation to tell your financial institution what the corporation or the entity that you're opening an account for does, and the allegations in the indictment are that these were fictitious companies that were set up, and so there was certain information sworn to by SPLC executives about what the entities were doing that we allege is false.
Can I just follow up on?
All right, so we'll return to the question and answer session from that recent DOJ press conference in just a minute. Let's go to kalshi.com/RSBN. I was just looking here on the desk here with the phone. When will traffic at the Strait of Hormuz return to normal? People are saying it's going to be June 1st, 2026, either before or after. Who will be confirmed as Fed chair? Will Trump be photographed every day this week? There's just all sorts of questions that people are putting money on the line. You can check it out too. There's, I usually say there's a number of topics. There are a number of topics. I'm going to talk about them right now. There's the trending topics, there's elections, there's politics, there's sports, culture, crypto, commodities, climate, economics, mentions companies, financials, tech and science. So there's just a lot going on there on Kalshi.com. So there's a number of ways that you guys can log on. So basically you can download the app if you'd like, or go to Kalshi.com/RSBN. Also, you could use that QR code as well. Great company right there. Growing in popularity. Great sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Same goes for Rumble Wallet. A number of people just started using Rumble Wallet. I recently downloaded this app as well. Wanted to check it out because if you've ever been curious about buying and investing in crypto or Bitcoin, stable coins, or even gold-backed stable coins, but felt like it was just too complicated, Rumble Wallet is an easy way to get started. You could buy, sell, and manage your cryptocurrencies all in one place, and the app is super straightforward. What really makes Rumble Wallet unique is that you can actually use it to tip your favorite creators like our network and support the Freedom First community we've built here on Rumble. Getting started is simple. All you have to do is download the Rumble Wallet app, sign up with your existing Rumble account, no need for a new login, and complete a few security steps, and you're set up in minutes. You can start with just a few dollars, and with the new feature called MoonPay, it's built into Rumble Wallet. You can actually easily buy crypto using your credit card, debit card, or bank wire. So if you've been thinking about the advantages of crypto, you can download Rumble Wallet right now. You can click our link in the description or search Rumble Wallet in your app store. Download Rumble Wallet today and move your assets to where they belong, in your hands, in your control. Now, Rumble Wallet is a technology provider only and not a custodial service. You can see terms at wallet.rumble.com. Rumble Wallet, another great sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's 12:31 Eastern Time. This is RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks again for live streaming in as it is Wednesday, April 22nd. As I mentioned at the top of our broadcast at 12 noon, on the president's schedule for the remainder of the day are numerous policy meetings inside the Oval Office. Now, all of these meetings are currently closed to the press. If anything opens up, we're here for it. We'll at least upload it for you to watch. But also, if there's any breaking news or developing news, we'll share that with you here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Meantime, let's get back to the DOJ to wrap up that press conference just yesterday.
Can I have one follow-up, Mr.
Go ahead.
On the hiring of Joe DeGenova to work for the department, can you just tell us a little bit? I understand you went down to Florida perhaps to take part in his swearing in or bring him on board. Can you explain why he's being brought back to the department after 40 years?
So, I mean, look, I think that everybody in this administration, whether it's Department of Justice or elsewhere, we're always looking for good people. And he's somebody who has a deep bench. As you said, he's been in this business for decades. And when we had the opportunity to ask him to join the team and help, we readily did.
I have an on-topic and an off-topic, if you'll allow me. Are you able to explain a little bit more about what led to this investigation? Were you guys tipped off by a former employee, or how did you guys discover this?
No, I can't talk about that. But it's been going on for a long time. There was a time that it was shut down for a while during the last administration. I don't know why, and it was started again over the past year or so, and that brings us to today.
I'm sorry, you mean the investigation began before this administration and then was shut down during the Biden administration?
That's my understanding. I don't have information beyond what I just said around that.
I wanted to ask about the John Brennan investigation. If you can explain why the career prosecutor who had been leading that investigation was removed, and if you have or had concerns that investigation is not moving quickly enough.
I don't have any concerns about that investigation. And again, the reporting around that really is just a source purely from leaks and not actually accurate reporting is not something I'm going to comment on and never will comment on.
Could I ask you just to clarify one thing? Obviously, the Bureau had a long relationship with the SPLC. Is it your understanding that the previous leaders at the Bureau knew this was happening and didn't view it as a crime, or is that the Bureau did not know this was happening?
It is my understanding that SPLC never told anybody in law enforcement that they were paying off the Ku Klux Klan, and I don't think that should surprise anybody.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Attorney General. I'd like you to both weigh in on a recent memo from the Office of Legal Counsel declaring the Presidential Records Act unconstitutional, so saying that presidents no longer need to preserve their documents or return them to the government. What do you say to critics who suggest this basically eliminates transparency and accountability around how White House operates, especially given how much time you guys are spending investigating the previous administration?
Well, look, I think there is no dispute that this administration in just 14 months has been a lot more transparent than the last administration or in any administration. So if critics are suggesting that somehow we're not being transparent, I don't find that credible in any way, shape, or form. As far as the recent OLC opinion regarding the PRA, that is something that has been heavily litigated in D.C. and elsewhere, and OLC issuing that is not the first, that's not the first place that you see that it's unconstitutional. I mean, I think there's a lot of places that you can go to think through why that is. The memo speaks for itself, and I don't have much to say about it beyond that.
Patel, do you want to weigh in on that?
The president has this pending billion-dollar lawsuit against the IRS. He sort of said that this is like he's negotiating with himself. How can you assure, is there anything you can do to assure the American people that taxpayer dollars are being protected? How are those negotiations being handled?
I'm most certainly not going to talk about ongoing litigation, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment about that case given its status right now.
Broadly, with the the various interests, the competing interests there, right? You have the president and the White House pressing obviously for some personal money, and then you have him being your boss. How do you sort of, just broadly speaking, how do you sort of handle that sort of issue?
I mean, the Department of Justice handles complicated decisions involving those type of issues every day, all day, and not just this Department of Justice. Every Department of Justice handles issues like that. I mean, you have decisions that an Attorney General or his or her staff have to make that are difficult and complicated, and we do it. Attorney Generals before me have done it, and we'll be able to handle it in an appropriate and ethical manner. Yep.
Thank you, Acting Attorney General. A question for you and then a question for the FBI Director. You spoke about the timeline of the investigation. I know you said you have not much more to say about that, but I am curious if you can talk about if it started in 2017, 2018, and just given what you said about the Biden administration turning it off, how is the Department of Justice ensuring this investigation remains free from political influence?
Well, I mean, look, it's free from political. There is nothing political about this indictment or this investigation. SPLC has lawyers, and if they think that I'm wrong about that, they're going to be free to make a motion in front of a judge like every other defendant in the country. As far as what I just don't know information, it wasn't that far ago. It was within the past 4 or 5 years, but there was a decision made. I don't have any insight into why it was made to not pursue the investigation, and we started it again, and that brings us to where we are today.
Well, I do want to give you an opportunity to respond directly to the allegations in the Atlantic article that your unexplained absences created a national security risk. And beyond that, can you say definitively that you have not been intoxicated or absent during your tenure as FBI Director?
I can say unequivocally that I never listened to the fake news mafia. And as when they get louder, it just means I'm doing my job. This FBI director has been on the job twice as many days as every director before me. What that means is I've taken half as many days off as those before me. What that means is I've taken a third less vacation than those before me. What that means is that this FBI with this Department of Justice has dropped the murder rate 20 points. What that means is this FBI with this Department of Justice has captured 8 of the top 10 most wanted fugitives in the world, twice as many as the Biden administration did in its entire 4 years. What that means is this FBI has seized enough fentanyl off the streets to kill 178 million Americans, a 31% increase. What that means is this FBI and this DOJ has arrested 43% more spies in 14 months than the entirety of the Biden administration. What that means is this FBI has seen a reduction in opiate overdose deaths up to 20% alone. What that means is that we have found 6,300 child victims, 6,300 families have their kids back. That is a 22% increase from the Biden administration. I'm on the job. I'm the first one in. I'm the last one out. I'm like an everyday American who loves his country, loves the sport of hockey, and champions my friends when they raise a gold medal and invite me in to celebrate. I've never been intoxicated on the job, and that is why we filed a $250 million defamation lawsuit. And any one of you that wants to participate, bring it on. I'll see you in court.
Explain the computer login issue. Just explain the computer login issue. You were not able to log into your lawsuit contends that you were not able to log into the system. What did you think after you were unable to log into the system?
Let's have a survey. How many of you people believe that's true? Hang on.
Did you communicate
You
with
asked the question, let me answer it.
No, let me
No.
Did you communicate with anyone that you thought you were fired after you were unable to log into
The problem with you and your report, don't cut me off. You asked the question.
Straightforward question.
The problem with you and your baseless reporting is that is an absolute lie. It was never said, it never happened, and I will serve in this administration as long as the President and the Attorney General want me to do so. And every time you guys report false lies, every time you guys raise baseless questions, when we are here to talk about the Southern Poverty Law Center's $3 million decade-long scheme to fraudulently fleece Americans, you are off topic.
It's a simple, straightforward question. Did you talk to anybody about whether you thought
The
you were
simple
fired?
answer to your question is you are lying, and every time you do so, I've answered your question. It's simply as follows. I was never locked out of my systems. Anybody who says
your
it,
lawsuit says the opposite. Your lawsuit contests
anyone that says the
your lawsuit-
opposite
your-
is lying.
The lawsuit
Thank you.
that you filed says that
Look,
directly.
man, stop. You're being extraordinarily rude. And I know maybe that's part of your profession, but please just stop. If you ask a question, he can answer it. And then, wait, now you're interrupting me. Like, just a little bit of respect, man. Just a tiny little bit. Try it sometime. Go ahead.
Earlier today, Senate Majority Leader John Thune once again was pleading for an end to the Justice Department's investigation into Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. How do you respond to a direct request like this from someone in your own party?
I haven't received the request, formally yet. I mean, listen, this is an ongoing investigation, and that's something that we can't talk about aside from saying, yes, it's an ongoing investigation, and the senator knows that, and other senators know that as well, and we'll get through it. But it is an ongoing investigation, and we can't really talk about it, especially not in public. But we'll try to address any senator, not just a senator from the Republican Party's concerns about that.
Director Patel, you said in an interview over this weekend regarding the election into whether the 2020 presidential election was stolen, you said that there were going to be arrests coming, and I promise you it's coming soon. Hoping you could just elaborate a little bit on what that meant.
Sure. We have many ongoing investigations into large-scale conspiracies, and like we did today, we'll be announcing those arrests when the grand jury returns those indictments.
All right, just one more question, sir.
I have an on-topic and off-topic. On the Southern Poverty Law Center, my understanding was from the video that the group posted today that this program about paying the informants had ended. I wasn't clear about when that was. Do you have any information about when this program stopped paying informants, and then if there's a statute of limitations issue there? I just wasn't sure how far back we're talking. And then I have another on-topic one.
So look, all I can tell you is the indictment alleges a very long period of time that includes up to 2023. So that's I can't speak beyond, when it, if anything has been happening since then, just what the grand jury found.
Okay. And then I also wanted to ask a follow-up on Joe DeGeneva. Looking back at, he's been very vocal over the years about his thoughts about the 2016 investigation, about the intelligence assessment. One quote that he said in an article in 2020 was, "There's no doubt John Brennan was the primogenitor of this entire counterintelligence investigation. It was John Brennan who went to James Comey and basically pummeled him into starting a counterintelligence investigation against Trump. Brennan's at the heart of this." Given those prior statements, isn't there possibly a conflict of interest, or at the very least a perceived conflict of interest, having him oversee this investigation, and has he been vetted for conflicts prior to being hired at the Justice Department?
I don't know. I'm not sure what the conflict of interest would be because somebody has said something in the past about a particular matter. That doesn't create a conflict necessarily. That's not what the conflicts are designed to, for just that. And I think
it creates a sense of bias, doesn't it? Like he's coming into the investigation with preconceived views about a target of your investigation. Isn't that a problem?
I mean, I just completely disagree with the premise. I mean, look, if you look at what happened during during the president's investigations, there were prosecutors that were actively involved in the 2016 information with Barr and what AG Barr was doing. They readily joined the case, and one of them was actually stood up in court. So I don't think it's unusual, and it's not something that, sir, he has to make sure that he's doing everything ethically. I'm sure that he would. He has to make sure that everything he's doing is not in conflict with whatever rules, the rules that we have in this building. But the mere fact that he has spoken about his perception, he didn't have access to grand jury information. He didn't have access to witnesses, and so like any prosecutor, I expect that he will follow the facts, and those facts come from witnesses and grand jury information. All right, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
One more quick one. All right, so a lot of back and forth there at the DOJ at that press conference as we saw the DOJ indictment against the Southern Poverty Law Center. Efforting an interview right now, actually, with someone that says they have been vindicated because of this DOJ indictment. We'll see if we can get that guest on the broadcast. In the meantime, let's go to a couple of our sponsors here on Right Side, including All Family Pharmacy. We're right in the middle of, as you guys know, peak allergy season, and for a lot of people, it's just hitting hard right now. Congestion, fatigue, and that rundown feeling that seems to come out of nowhere. And it's not just the symptoms, it's how it affects everything else. Your sleep, your energy, your focus throughout the day. Most of the time, it hits before you've had a chance to prepare. It's something we see year after year, and that's why more Americans are starting to prepare ahead of time instead of reaching last minute and reacting last minute. With All Family Pharmacy, you can actually get access to common allergy medications like nasal sprays and inhalers, along with other prescriptions people rely on this time of year. The process is straightforward and simple. You go online, you fill out a quick medical form, a licensed doctor reviews it, and if appropriate, your medication shipment goes straight to your door. No extra steps, no running around, just a simpler way to handle allergy season and have what you need on hand. So all you have to do is go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, use the RSBN 10 promo code, you'll get that 10% at checkout. Let's go to our next sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. You see Birch Gold Group. Of course, text Trump to 989898 for more information on Birch Gold Group, because when the dollar's convertibility into gold ended back in 1971, gold was actually fixed at $35 an ounce. But if you fast forward to today, the US dollar has lost over 85% of its purchasing power. Gold, on the other hand, has increased in value by more than 12,000%, and that's why central banks and others are buying gold at record levels. Here at RSBN, we encourage you to consider diversifying your savings with physical gold from Birch Gold Group. But this all starts really with education. You got to know what you're getting into, right? Well, Birch Gold just announced their Learn and Earn Precious Metals event. So it's a free online event. It rewards you for learning the basics of investing in precious metals. So when you sign up, you'll get free silver on your next purchase. Get even larger incentives as you go. So the more you learn, the more you can earn. But you must act now, as a special event only runs through April 30th. So 8 days on the clock. The dollar lost its anchor in 1971. You don't have to lose yours. So just text that word Trump to the number you see on your screen, 989898. You'll join Birch Gold's Learn and Earn Precious Metals event. You can text Trump to 989898 today. Not only joining that event, but you also get that free info kit from Birch Gold Group. Great sponsor here on Right Side. As we're about 12 minutes to the top of the hour, again, President Trump holding a number of events today. They're closed press policy meetings. If anything opens up or if there's any developing news or breaking news, we'll have it here. Let's go to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey, y'all. y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
Turning 65, new to Medicare?
Hi, Dan Marino here. If you're turning 65 or new to Medicare, you may be eligible for additional benefits through a Medicare Advantage plan, depending on your area.
Plans vary by area, and a licensed agent can help you understand which benefits you may qualify for at no cost to you.
So make the call today. Don't miss out on the benefits you could be eligible for.
Call Plan Select now.
Some great sponsors here at Right Side, including Plan Select. Great to see the NFL quarterback Dan Marino on that commercial there here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. This week is National Crime Victims Week. The Department of Homeland Security released a video hearing from Angel families.
She had big dreams, and it was taken from her in a second. We learned later on that he was hit by an illegal.
I was making some noise, but it wasn't enough to do anything.
It's a moment that I don't wish on my worst enemy. If this had happened under the previous administration, we would still be sitting with nothing.
And it was shortly after that that the Voice Office called me. President Trump had started the Voice Office. He knew that there needed to be a bridge for Angel families to be able to communicate and find out what was happening.
So I contacted Voice, and they immediately called me back and gave me the information that they had, and we have a new hope. This is not political. This is a life. He had a life. Once I was able to get in and file a report with them, that's when movement towards justice happened. Contact Voice, and they will help you, and don't stop fighting. Just don't give up.
They give you your voice. They're the bridge between your needs and the government. It changed everything.
President Trump, thank you for reinstating the Voice program. Thank you for hearing us. You're not alone in this. Even though many times you will feel like you are not alone.
It's gut-wrenching stuff there when you see and hear from the Angel families that stop by at the White House for various events, and you think about these stories, and some of them are still happening to this day, and that's why ICE is doing what they have to do for deportations, but also that just shows how bad that was when the Biden regime allowed just millions and millions of people come across that border free of charge, free of stops, no real wall, But thankfully, the president decided on day one of his second administration to put the military down there to keep the wall going. It's really tough to watch those videos. Speaking of the military, switching our focus now to Operation Epic Fury, Sentcom has posted a new video titled U.S. Central Command Forces Are Ready. Let's take a look at clip number 3.
We're rearming. We're retooling and we're adjusting our tactics, techniques, and procedures. There's no military in the world that adjusts like we do, and that's exactly what we're doing right now during the ceasefire.
The latest video from the United States Central Command, specifically, of course, with Operation Epic Fury, released pretty much within that 24/7 news cycle. We have a few live interviews coming up. We have more videos to get to in just a second as we're monitoring any breaking news that's out there. Of course, President Trump holding policy meetings or having policy meetings at the Oval Office today. Right now, all are closed to the press. If there's anything that opens up or there is any breaking news developments, of course, we'll go right to that. In the meantime, Plan Select is one of our great sponsors. As we just mentioned, you saw Dan Marino there on that commercial earlier. Are you getting all of the benefits you deserve from your Medicare Advantage plan? Because many people don't realize their plan may include valuable extras that can save them thousands of dollars every year. So call 877-664-8133 now to see if you qualify. With the right Medicare Advantage plan, you can actually receive a gym membership at no cost to help you stay active and healthy. If you need a ride, many plans include transportation services with up to 60 rides per year to your doctor's appointments or pharmacy. Some plans also offer meal delivery programs with up to 28 meals delivered each year at no cost, perfect for after a hospital stay or when you just need a little extra help. You may also qualify for an over-the-counter allowance of up to $800 per year for everyday essentials like vitamins, first aid supplies, cold and flu medicine, and dental hygiene products. And that's not all, because certain plans provide a grocery card with up to $3,600 per year to help pay for healthy food and household essentials. All you have to do is call 877-664-8133 again to see if you qualify. So the big question is, are you taking advantage of everything your plan offers? Licensed agents are standing by. Give them a call, 877-664-8133, again, to speak with a licensed Medicare Advantage plan agent. Let's go to our next sponsor here on Right Side Broadcasting Network as we move on with our live broadcast, covepure.com/RSBN. We've been talking about Cove Pure a lot because at the end of the day, what we're looking for is clean, healthy, great, no aftertaste drinking water. And you've heard us talk about Cove Pure, of course, and if the water scares in Flint, Michigan, and East Palestine, Ohio weren't enough to get you to make the switch, well, this might. More than 176 million Americans are drinking tap water with PFAs in it. They're man-made chemicals used in food packaging, nonstick cookware, firefighting foam. Scientists call them forever chemicals because once they're in your body, they stay there, they don't break down, and then they're linked to hormone disruption, immune damage, and increased cancer risk. But here's the part that should make you and yours upset, because the EPA set legal limits for PFAS in drinking water back in 2024, but the water systems around the country really have until 2031 to comply. It's a whole 5 years from now. Until that deadline arrives, a utility can be operating above the legal limit right now and isn't required to notify you, so you're just drinking that water. That's why every single household needs this product right there on your screen, Cove Pure. The government knows these chemicals are harmful enough to regulate. They're just not making anyone act on it quite yet. So it means if you want clean, healthy water, you're just going to have to do it yourself. And Cove Pure was engineered exactly for this. Unlike the normal pitcher filters that you see at the store, their Clearwave reverse osmosis technology is actually certified to remove up to 99.9% of contaminants. So the PFAS, heavy metals, fluoride, pharmaceuticals, filtering particles, hundreds of thousands of times smaller than a single human hair. The best part about Cove Pure is they make it so easy. It sits right there on your countertop. You don't have to drill any holes or call someone in to install it. You just plug it in and you can even get whatever water temperature you want, hot, cold, or warm. And that's with the tap of a button. Don't wait until 2031. You can take control of your water quality right now. Head to covepure.com/RSBN, and because you're a viewer of Right Side Broadcasting Network, you'll get $250 off right now. Just go to covepure.com/RSBN. covepure.com/RSBN. All right, we're approaching the top of the hour here at 1 o'clock Eastern. We have a couple live interviews coming up. Before we do that, let's go to a government oversight hearing yesterday where Kentucky Representative James Comer exposed lawfare targeting American farmers. Here's clip number 4.
Today's roundtable is focused on the weaponization of state and federal regulations against American farmers and ranchers. Agriculture has had a profound influence on my life. I'm a cattle farmer by trade and have deep-rooted understanding of the challenges farmers and ranchers face, such as price volatility, fluctuating markets, and unpredictable weather. Today's farmers, however, face a whole different set of challenges brought on by overburdensome regulations that puts the security of Americans' agricultural future at risk. Farmers and ranchers have had their livelihoods, property rights, and a way of life directly threatened by detrimental, excessive, and oftentimes meritless litigation directed towards farmers and landowners. Through evolving regulations, costly litigation, and in some cases criminal prosecution, the federal and state governments have waged a legal war against farmers all across America. The cumulative effect of this aggressive posture towards the farming community has resulted in an erosion of due process, private land rights, and the economic viability of family farming. Progressive and leftist administrations at all levels of government have failed agricultural producers. They have created a culture of systematic and selective lawfare intended to hurt the individuals that disagree with their misaligned agendas. Charles and Heather Maud of South Dakota are victims of this failure in leadership. During the Biden administration, Mauds were alerted by the U.S. Forest Service that fencing on their farm blocked access to the Buffalo Gap National Grassland. After notice, the Mauds agreed in good faith to a land survey. Despite their strides to work with the government to resolve this simple civil dispute, they were hit with a baseless and unnecessary criminal prosecution. The Mauds were indicted separately on federal property theft charges, facing up to 10 years in federal prison and charged with over $250,000 in fines. The civil dispute was over 50 acres of land, and the fence in question was built before Heather and Charles were even born. They were just trying to maintain their small hog and cattle farm on land that their family had worked on since the early 1900s. The charges against Heather and Charles were dropped sensibly by the Trump administration in 2025. This is unfortunately a common situation. The same thing is happening to family farms across the country. The King family faced a meritless case of agricultural lawfare by the radical government in the state of Washington. Wade and Teresa King's family have ranched the same land in Washington since the 1950s. Despite maintaining the land for decades, the Washington State Department of Ecology issued administrative orders claiming the King family violated the state's Water Pollution Control Act. These orders demanded restoration of the newly interpreted wetlands and levied a civil penalty of more than $266,000 and a $3.7 million restoration order against the King family. The wetlands in question were simply man-made stock ponds, which is a protected practice in Washington. Additionally, the stock ponds existed before Wade and Teresa King were even born. This is a bizarre attempt to force the King family to comply with an unintended and incorrect interpretation of the law. No family farm should be punished for a practice protected by state law. Their stock ponds were incorrectly identified as wetlands, and the Kings were forced to pay the price. The Kings are hardworking, law-abiding citizens, and the sudden reinterpretation of state law, turning our American farmers and ranchers into criminals, is flat out wrong. Both the Maud family and the King family ranch are a true testament to what the American dream means, and they do not deserve to be wrongfully prosecuted by radical governments. Thankfully, U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Rollins and President Trump have the backs of our great agriculture industry. Earlier this year, Secretary Rollins unveiled the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Farmer and Rancher Freedom Framework, an applicable common sense policy framework outlining how the federal government can reverse course on years of systematic lawfare against the agriculture industry. The framework contains 4 tenets to restore effective government programming and policy making related to the agriculture industry: protecting producers, preserving land and liberty, purging burdensome regulations, and being a strong partner for agriculture's future. Today's roundtable will allow us to converse with 3 individuals who have seen the harsh consequences of government overreach and overregulation firsthand within the agriculture industry. American farmers and ranchers are the backbone of our great nation, and they deserve to be able to farm freely without fear of wrongful, politicized prosecution from state and federal leaders. Make no mistake, overreach and weaponization of local, state, and federal governments will not be tolerated, no matter who is the target. The House Committee of Oversight and Government Reform will continue to work with the whistleblowers who have been subject to agricultural lawfare to bring justice to their stories, while also helping reform policies that have been manipulated against them. We must protect and defend American agriculture at all costs. It has been an honor to work alongside the U.S. Department of Agriculture in these efforts. We welcome anyone across the aisle willing to join us in supporting Secretary Rollins and the Trump administration's initiatives to support this critical industry.
All right, so just recently there you saw the Kentucky Congressman James Comer speaking about lawfare against American farmers. Man, it's just ending the weaponization of government is a high priority, along with a number of other things as we see out there from We the People. And we'll look forward to seeing just more and more wins, of course. It's 12:05 Central Time, 1:05 Eastern Time. The President of the United States just posted something on Truth Social. Specifically, if you remember, he talked about the Iranian leaders recently. He said, "To the Iranian leaders who will soon be in negotiations with my representatives, I would greatly appreciate the release of these women. I am sure that they will respect the fact that you did so. Please do no harm to them. Would be a great start to our negotiations. Thank you for your attention to this matter." Apparently, there are a number of women that were going to be hung. This is part of what President Trump was posting on True Social. The Islamic Republic is preparing to hang 8 women. Not a word from the international community or so-called human rights organizations. This is a post from President Trump's True Social account. Now, that was a day ago. The reason why I bring that up is because literally 2 minutes ago, he says, quote, "Very good news. I have just been informed that the 8 women protesters who are going to be executed tonight in Iran will no longer be killed. 4 will be released immediately, and 4 will be sentenced to 1 month in prison. I very much appreciate that Iran and its leaders respected my request as President of the United States and terminated the planned execution. Thank you for your attention to this matter." Of course, right there on Truth Social, as you can see, reading from President Trump's Truth Social post that is now 5 minutes old. I wanted to bring that to your attention as we continue speaking about the world right now. Shifting gears slightly, or pretty much big time, as today is Earth Day, and the EPA is celebrating it. So let's check out clip number 5.
Earth Day unites all Americans in our common goal of protecting our environment and conserving it for centuries to come. The Trump EPA is working nonstop to power the great American comeback, adhere to gold standard science, keep within our statutory authority, and reaffirm our commitment to providing clean air, land, and water for all Americans. I encourage each of you to get out and enjoy the natural beauty that America has to offer. We must never waver in our commitment to protect the environment. From all of us here at the Trump EPA, Happy Earth Day.
All right, so from the EPA, let's go to a couple of our great sponsors here, including Kalshi.com/RSBN. A lot of different political trends and people talking about a ton of topics on Kalshi right now, whether you want to check them out for polling, but also betting and trading, people putting money on the line for a number of different questions and topics there, whether it's about weather or sports or technology or science, or how about politics or faith, all sorts of stuff. Movies, music, the list goes on. Gaming, I mean, come on now, right? A lot going on there with Kalshi.com/RSBN. 3 ways to get to Kalshi, of course. The QR code that you see on the bottom of your screen, or you could download the Kalshi app. One way you can go is Kalshi.com/RSBN. There's a little bit of a gift there from Kalshi, of course. So Kalshi.com/RSBN, as we are looking at various trends, including when will the Strait of Hormuz be completely open. People are just putting money on the line for that, but also checking out polls. It's kind of a 1-2 punch when it comes to Kalshi, figuratively speaking. Great sponsor here with Right Side Broadcasting Network, Kalshi.com/RSBN. Same thing with Rumble Wallet. As you guys may have heard, a number of people just started using Rumble Wallet. I recently downloaded this app myself, wanted to check it all out, because if you've ever been curious about buying and investing in crypto or Bitcoin or stable coins, or even gold-backed stable coins, but felt like it was just too complicated, Rumble Wallet is an easy way to get started. You can buy, sell, and manage your cryptocurrencies all in one place, and the app is really straightforward. What really makes Rumble Wallet unique is that you can use it to tip your favorite creators like our network and support the Freedom First community we've built here on Rumble. Getting started is simple as well. All you have to do is download the Rumble Wallet app. Sign up with your existing Rumble account. There's no need for a new login. Complete a few security steps and you're set up in minutes. You can start with just a few dollars, and with MoonPay built into Rumble Wallet, you can easily buy crypto using your credit card, debit card, or bank wire. So if you've been thinking about the advantages of crypto, you can download Rumble Wallet right now. Click our link in the description or search Rumble Wallet in your app store. So you can download Rumble Wallet today and move your assets to where they belong, in your hands, in your control. Rumble Wallet is a technology provider only and not a custodial service. You can see terms at wallet.rumble.com. A couple great sponsors here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's 1:10 Eastern Time. My laptop says 1:10, and then that screen says 1:09. Interesting. I know it's on a little bit of a delay. Maybe it's that few seconds, 30-second delay. It is what it is. All right, so let's do this. We are going to be going live to a number of interviews coming up here in just a minute. But let's do this. Let's talk about the advancements that we're seeing in our airspace thanks to the Department of Transportation. Let's take a look at a new video from the White House regarding that with Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation.
Think how far we've come with software developments. Let's watch a video on software, national airspace. Check it out.
All right, so air traffic control, the FAA getting quite the upgrade, hopefully making things much smoother in the friendly skies out there. Anybody afraid to fly? I know some people that are, but remember John Madden, the great football coach and announcer? He didn't like flying. He just took the bus everywhere, literally all city to city every Sunday back in the day when it was Pat Summerall, John Madden, the two great sportscasters back in the day. I've flown around the world. I've been to Australia, I've been to Africa, I've been to Central America, all over the place. Seattle, I mean, here in the States. And it's just one of those things. You just go, you pray, and you land. Anyway, so it's great to see those upgrades, though, with the FAA and the air traffic control. Really just needing that upgrade over the years. And unfortunately, in the Biden regime, they just didn't do anything with it either. Things got progressively worse over the years. And finally, some work getting done there as it's 1:13, 1:12 Eastern Time. Let's go now to the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. He's giving us an update on tax filing season. Thank God for the family tax cuts that we received, the working family tax cuts through President Trump. A lot of people receiving refunds this time around. Great to see those extra dollars. Let's go to clip number 7 to hear from Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary.
I would like to begin by highlighting the Treasury Department's effort to ensure accountability and deliver results for the American people. There's no better example of delivering meaningful change for everyday Americans than President Trump's working families tax cuts, of which over 60 million returns, 60 million, claimed at least one of President Trump's signature new tax cuts this filing season by enacting no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and new tax cuts for seniors and Social Security. We are delivering tax relief to working families. This season, over 7 million filers have claimed no tax and tips, with an average deduction of over $7,000. Over 28 million filers have claimed no tax on overtime, with an average deduction of over $3,100, and over 34 million seniors have claimed the enhanced deduction for seniors, with an average deduction of over $7,500. The legislation not only delivered historic tax relief, but also began building long-term financial security for future generations through initiatives like Trump accounts, of which nearly 5.5 million accounts have been opened, with over 1.3 million children eligible for the $1,000 pilot program contribution. Trump accounts demonstrate this administration's pledge to invest in the workforce of tomorrow, giving them an ownership stake in the success of the nation.
All right, a lot of numbers there from the Secretary of the Treasury, of course, hearing the amount of dollars and the percentages coming back to the American people. So great to hear that from Secretary Scott Bessent. Of course, as we are continuing our live coverage here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, let's now go to NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman. He has an update on Artemis II and funding for NASA. Let's go to clip number 8.
Now, on July 29, 1958, NASA was created to undertake and achieve the near impossible. And on July 20th, 1969, when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon, that's exactly what we did. In the decades since, American ingenuity was on display. As the shuttle program took flight, the International Space Station was constructed, and telescopes, probes, and Martian rovers were launched to help unlock the secrets of the universe. The last 2 decades are a different story. The GAO's 2025 assessment of major NASA projects identified roughly $15 billion in cost overruns since 2009. Just as an example, Dragonfly was initially proposed 6 years ago at $850 million for development. We are optimistic it will launch in 2028 at a cost of $3.4 billion. Our flagship X-plane, the X-59, was conceived 8 years ago as a $468 million program with a first flight expected in January of 2022. The program to date is close to $800 million, and first flight occurred in late 2025, only recently resuming operations. The future enhancements to the SLS rocket, referred to as Block 1B, which is a performance upgrade to co-manifest cargo that industry is already capable of supporting at lower cost, required the Mobile Launcher 2 and the Exploration Upper Stage. ML2 was awarded in 2019 on a $383 million contract for delivery in March of 2023. The ML2 program cost was on track to $1.8 billion, with years more to go. Similarly, EUS, the Exploration Upper Stage, began with a contract value of $962 million. It has grown to over $2 billion, and the Inspector General assessed SLS Block 1B would likely reach $5.7 billion. Of course, we are absolutely riding a high at this moment. The nation and the world paused as 4 brave astronauts on Artemis II flew around the moon. NASA made the headlines we were supposed to make. We showed the world the moon again, and we showed humanity Earth again. I want to congratulate the crew of Artemis II, the NASA workforce, our contractors and partners for delivering this moment and for all that will inevitably come next. As President Trump so correctly said when speaking to the crew from space, today you have made history and made all of America really proud. You really are modern-day pioneers. The pioneering spirit championed by the President has breathed new life in our country's effort to master the stars. But for all the Artemis II mission has accomplished, how we arrived at it was far from perfect, and the decisions of previous administrations that led to these deficiencies deserve some careful reflection. Almost the entirety of the SLS program is repurposed, decades-old space shuttle hardware. I certainly understand why the shuttle program was ending, and it was very important at the time to look after the industrial base. I will also say that was at a time when we did not have a geopolitical competitor challenging America in the high ground of space, but perpetuating the past does not help us realize a better future. Even after over $100 billion of taxpayer funding to date and the most recent and successful Artemis II mission, we would not have launched again until late 2028 with the aim of putting astronauts on the moon under the previous plan, a plan with no hope of achieving this national imperative. You do not fly rockets like this every 3+ years and expect success. Further, you do not make each vehicle a work of art by materially changing the configuration. You also do not build a base in orbit above the moon when the scientists, the engineers, the astronauts, and certainly the space-loving community want to be on the surface of the moon, which is already very hard to achieve. So like many, I want to see more missions of science and discovery. Under the previous administration, NASA, with the support of Congress, rightfully canceled the Mars sample return mission that was conceived to cost up to $4 billion and in just a few years ballooned to over $10 billion, with $2 billion in taxpayer funds that have already been spent. This is not good capital allocation or execution, and adding dozens of other in-formulation or life-extended science missions alongside it does not necessarily make things better. American exceptionalism is being challenged in the high ground of space. To win, we cannot establish programs that are designed to be too big to fail, but at the same time, too costly to succeed. Nor should it be throwing more money at the problem, but rather fixing the problems and concentrating resources on the mission and delivering outcomes. The President's fiscal year 27 budget, alongside the resources in the Working Family Tax Cut Act, focus the agency on these priorities: return to the moon, increase launch cadence, and land American astronauts on the surface by 2028, consistent with the directive laid out in Executive Order 14369, ensuring American space superiority, which was issued by President Trump last December. In parallel, build with industry a moon base. This includes landers, rovers, power and communication, tech demonstrations, so we can master the skills needed for future crewed missions to Mars, alongside all the scientific payloads those systems can carry. Ignite the orbital and lunar economy. Work alongside industry to expand commercial astronaut payload and monetization opportunities on the space station, send demand signals for landers and rovers in support of a moon base, and transition to one or multiple commercial space stations by 2030. We have already awarded private astronaut missions 5, 6, and 7 in that regard. The budget supports the Nancy Grace Roman telescope that will launch at the end of 2026 with 100 times the field of view of Hubble, 1,000 times the scan rate. We will launch Dragonfly, the nuclear-powered octocopter, to Saturn's moon of Titan in 2028, along with a nuclear power and propulsion demonstration that includes a scientific payload, bringing billions in taxpayer investments from decades of failed programs into real capability in space, and by 2030 deliver fission surface power to the moon. We do presently inhabit just one planet, and understanding Earth science is paramount. And it's paramount for agriculture, industry, and natural disaster response. We do value this science and intend to work with industry to get after this data more affordably. The President's budget supports investments in aeronautics that will advance civil, commercial, and national security aviation, especially next-generation air transportation systems for safer air traffic control. We're rebuilding core competencies at NASA, moving the work of thousands of contractors to civil servants, freeing up hundreds of millions in resources in support of NASA objectives. And inherent in everything we do at NASA is inspiration. It does not come necessarily from pamphlets or flyers, but from missions like Artemis, landing astronauts on the moon, X-planes, and breathtaking images from space telescopes and rovers, moments that inspire children to dress up as astronauts for Halloween and grow up to contribute to humankind's greatest adventure. I have communicated to the NASA workforce across every center I have visited, in town halls and in letters. If we can concentrate the resources entrusted to us on the needle-moving objectives, why we exist as an agency, while clearing away needless bureaucracy, obstacles, and policies that impede progress, and unleash the brilliant minds at NASA, then returning to the moon and building a lunar base will be pale in comparison to what we can achieve in the years ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And speaking of years ahead, 2027 next year will be Artemis 3, the actual landing on the moon. So it's going to be quite the coverage. If you saw our coverage here on Right Side, a lot of people, of course, interested in outer space and the moon and Mars and all the things. So we'll see that next year. Meantime, we're right in the middle of peak allergy season, and for a lot of people, it's hitting hard right now because congestion, fatigue, and that rundown feeling that seems to come out of nowhere. And it's not just the symptoms, it's how it affects everything else, your sleep, your energy, your focus throughout the day. Most of the time, it hits before you've had a chance to prepare. So it's something we see year after year, and that's why more Americans are starting to prepare ahead instead of reacting last minute. With All Family Pharmacy, you can get access to common allergy medications like nasal sprays and inhalers, along with other prescriptions people rely on this time of year. The process is simple. You go online, you fill out a quick medical form, a licensed doctor reviews it, and if appropriate, your medication ships straight to your door. No extra steps, no running around, just a simpler way to handle allergy season and have what you need on hand. Visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use that RSBN 10 promo code to save 10% today. That's allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Also, when the dollar's convertibility into gold ended in 1971, gold was fixed at $35 an ounce. Fast forward to today, the U.S. dollar has lost over 85% of its purchasing power, but gold, on the other hand, has increased in value by more than 12,000%. That's why central banks and many others are buying gold at record levels. And here at RSBN, we encourage you to consider diversifying your savings with physical gold from Birch Gold Group. But it all starts with education, because Birch Gold just announced their Learn and Earn Precious Metals event. This free online event rewards you for learning the basics of investing in precious metals. So you can sign up to get free silver on your next purchase and get even larger incentives as you go, because the more you learn, the more you can earn. But you must act now, as this special event only runs through April 30th, so you only have 8 days. The dollar lost its anchor in 1971. You don't have to lose yours. Text the word Trump to the number 989898 to join Birch Gold's Learn and Earn Precious Metals event by April 30th. Again, texting Trump to that number you see there on your screen, 989898. All right, so it's 1:24 Eastern Time. This is RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks again for live streaming in. And if you're watching this on replay, thanks so much for doing so. Let's go now to U.S. Trade Representative Ambassador Jamieson Greer on a very busy year of trade.
It's been a busy year. I'm looking forward to discussing how President Trump's trade policies bearing fruit for American workers. I note your comments on the submission of the testimony and assure you that we take that quite seriously, and we'll ensure that that won't happen again, so thank you. As you know, President Trump inherited the largest trade deficit in human history, $1.2 trillion annually. Between 2020 and 2024, the last year of the Biden administration, the U.S. trade deficit in goods increased by over 40%. The trade deficit worsened every year by an average of nearly 8% during that period. The result was a trade and domestic production picture that was moving in the wrong direction for American workers. Business sentiment for manufacturing had cratered, wallowing at -6 or 7% for much of President Biden's last 2 years in office. After initial recovery from the COVID-19 crisis, manufacturing jobs under President Biden dropped from 12.9 million in January 2023 to 12.67 million in January 2025, a loss of 230,000 manufacturing jobs in just 2 years under President Biden. Our supply chain risks also grew as critical production remained reliant on foreign sources or moved offshore. With the loss of domestic production, especially for food, prices remained high. Consider that in just 4 years, President Trump's first-term agricultural trade surplus had been replaced under Biden by the largest agricultural trade deficit in U.S. history. These circumstances arising from our trade deficit and more broadly our current account deficit represent a national emergency. And it's an emergency that Congress has recognized for decades. In the 1988 Omnibus Trade and Competitiveness Act, Congress made clear that, and I quote, "The principal negotiating objective of the United States regarding current account surpluses is to develop rules to address large and persistent global current account imbalances of countries, including imbalances which threaten the stability of the international trading system, by imposing greater responsibility on such countries to undertake policy changes aimed at restoring current account equilibrium, including expedited implementation of trade agreements where feasible and appropriate." And that's exactly what the President has done. In response to our growing trade and current account deficits, in just 1 year, a combination of tariffs and deals has helped drive a reversal in these trends. Since the introduction of the President's reciprocal trade program in April 2025 through February 26, the latest available data, the U.S. trade deficit in goods decreased by 24% compared to the prior period. Instead of an average 8% increase, we've now started reversing the trade deficit. And as the chairman pointed out, a large part of this is attributed to reduced dependence on China. Our trade deficit in goods with China fell to $200 billion in 2025, the lowest it's been since 2004. And China's share of total U.S. imports fell to about 9%, the lowest it's been since China joined the WTO in 2001. The President's program has also driven manufacturing business sentiment well above the low levels seen during the Biden years. Real manufacturing worker pay has increased by $2,400 in 1 year under President Trump, after falling $830 over the course of the Biden administration. Manufacturing productivity surged by 2.4% in the last quarter of 2025. Manufacturing wages increased by 4.7%. In other words, the average American manufacturing worker is producing more goods and getting paid more to do so. There are nearly 440,000 manufacturing job openings in the U.S., providing lots of opportunity for under and unemployed Americans to take jobs in the manufacturing sector. And in 2026, we have the first quarter of positive manufacturing job gains since a long-term trend of decreases that started in 2023 under President Biden. And we've seen that the capital goods used for production are skyrocketing during President Trump's term, with orders exceeding $4 billion each month of the fourth quarter of 2025. These are levels not seen since before China's entry into the WTO. So we're seeing large demand for labor and manufacturing in the United States. As the chairman pointed out, our agricultural community is one of the largest beneficiaries of these policies, with double-digit growth in exports in 2025 for key commodities like corn and dairy, and the ag trade deficit is finally falling again. Our service providers are benefiting from new market access. We have negotiated a number of new trade agreements in a very short time. And since 1985, the United States negotiated 14 free trade agreements. In the last year alone, we concluded 9 agreements on reciprocal trade, and additional 9 framework deals that will become agreements on reciprocal trade. It's no coincidence that following this blitz of deal-making, U.S. exports reached $302 billion in January 2026 and $315 billion in February 2026, the highest monthly export figures in U.S. history. So when I hear people saying that trade isn't going well and we're exporting more than we've ever made before, and our workers are making more and getting paid more to do it, we know we have success. The entry of China into WTO in 2001 cost this nation millions of jobs and tens of thousands in factories. One recent study found that the negative health outcomes for workers that lost their jobs due to NAFTA outweighed any welfare gains associated with that trade deal. So as we move from the damaging trade policies of the past toward a global system of reciprocal and balanced trade, my team and I, we consult with and will continue to consult with this committee, its staff, and other members of Congress. We've held over 1,000 briefings with members of Congress and their staff since the beginning of the administration on every aspect of our work. And we intend to continue these robust consultations. I hope today we can have an honest conversation about the need for and value of this new direction of trade policy, something that's been years in the making and is long overdue. Thank you.
That's quite the job for the United States Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, as it's the bottom of the hour, 1:30 Eastern Time. Thanks so much for live streaming in with us. Joining us now is White House Deputy Press Secretary Abigail Jackson. Thanks so much for joining us once again here on Right Side.
Yeah, great to be with you as always.
All right, so let's dive into the latest on the DHS partial government shutdown. First of all, can you believe we're still talking about this as it's past 2 months? This might be actually, unfortunately, record-breaking. I don't think there's been a partial government shutdown that has gone this long.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable that we're still talking about it. And I think a lot of Americans have forgotten about the consequences of the shutdown because the president took such strong and bold action to make sure the men and women of DHS were getting paid in the midst of this shutdown. So that has mitigated a lot of the problems that we saw early on. I know you remember the long TSA lines. I know the American people remember the long TSA lines that they had to stand in. So the president took that action. He helped mitigate it. But this is still a problem that we're facing and still a priority for the president to get the agency fully funded and back reopened operating at normal capacity.
Yeah, I mean, we know that there are numbers of stories happening within that 24/7 news cycle, but things like this where you have a partial government shutdown, it's quite surprising to see that it has gone this long. Again, this is a record-breaking thing that we're seeing here with how long this shutdown's been going on. Now, as a member of the White House staff there and team and the press team, what would be the message to Congress on Capitol Hill right now?
The message to Congress that the president has had since the beginning of this shutdown is reopen the Department of Homeland Security, fully fund the government. The American people depend on the Department of Homeland Security for so many different functions. The Democrats have decided to shut it down because they don't like that we're arresting and deporting criminal illegal aliens, something the American people elected this president to do, might I add. But they forget that the department also provides many other critical functions. Think FEMA, think the Coast Guard, think, some more nuanced policy areas like cybersecurity. All of those things are suffering because the Democrats have decided to play political games with funding for the Department of Homeland Security. And frankly, it's just shameful.
It's shameful because we aired a video earlier in this broadcast from angel families, and we always are letting people know that this is something that is really happening to this day across our country. It's not like it's widespread every 5 seconds, but they are definitely happening, these tragic stories. And so the Democrats, they just keep pushing it to the side, aren't they?
Yes, and you're exactly right that this is still a very real problem, the consequences of illegal immigration that the American people are dealing with. We haven't forgotten that for 4 years, Joe Biden let anyone who wanted to waltz across our southern border into our country. And tremendous accomplishment, but we are still dealing with the consequences of Biden's immigration crisis, Biden's border crisis. And unfortunately, there are angel families across this country who have firsthand had to deal with the consequences because they've lost a loved one to a violent criminal illegal alien that was allowed in this country. And these are the same people that Democrats want to defund ICE and CBP for and say we shouldn't arrest them, we shouldn't deport them. It is just ridiculous that it's still going on at this point.
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, we know President Trump is a law and order president. We've seen it since day one of his first administration, let alone, getting into the White House there this second time around. Wasn't it one of his first moves was to bring the military down to the border to say enough of that down there, if you remember Eagle Pass, Texas?
Yeah, it's really stunning when you look at the visuals from right before the election. I'm sure you remember it was just constant footage of thousands upon thousands of people pouring across the border. And when you compare that footage to what we saw just a few months after President Trump was sworn into office, it was totally quiet down there. And so it just goes to show you what one president can accomplish when he sets his mind to it. And that was a priority for the president. Now, I don't want to sugarcoat things, that this is still a constant battle every single day on the border to make sure that it remains secure and that it remains secure for years and years to come. That remains a priority for the president. But it is really just shocking and stunning that the Democrats allowed this to go on for so long when President Trump came in and cleaned it up in just a few months.
And to your point earlier about DHS and TSA and President Trump mitigating that with signing that memorandum to help get TSA agents paid, when we see the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, talking about upgrades with the FAA and air traffic control, that must be a great thing at the White House as well, to just have things go a lot smoother, especially in our friendly skies.
Yeah, there are lots of things happening at the White House and across this administration every single day that frankly just don't get the coverage that they deserve because the mainstream media is just obsessed with whatever they think the story of the day is. But, whether it's Sean Duffy and that initiative, which is great, or even whether it's DHS who amidst this shutdown, this historic shutdown, they have still continued arresting criminal illegal aliens, deporting criminal illegal aliens, TSA workers, even before the president took action to get them paid, they continued working through this shutdown. So the American people should feel confident knowing that they have a government who is truly working for them and is working in their best interest. Unfortunately, congressional Democrats are doing everything they can to stand in the way.
And that's something that we've seen them do before, but hopefully we can overcome this and keep on winning. A lot to be done, of course, as we continue to monitor the White House. And thanks so much for joining us, the White House Deputy Press Secretary Abigail Jackson.
Great to be with you.
Thank you. All right, so that's the update there from the Department of Homeland Security, latest when it comes to funding and that partial government shutdown that we are still seeing. This is day, I believe, 67 or 68. And some of the research, it shows that this is a record-setting, unfortunately, a record-setting situation right now where this is the longest partial government shutdown in the history of our country. And it's happening right this second. Again, we'll cover the stories that maybe some others won't. But also, we talk about all sorts of stories here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. So glad you're here with us as it's 1:38 Eastern Time, Wednesday, April 22nd. Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Brightside Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Brightside Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
Turning 65, new to Medicare?
Hi, Dan Marino here. If you're turning 65 or new to Medicare, you may be eligible for additional benefits through a Medicare Advantage plan, depending on your area.
Plans vary by area, and a licensed agent can help you understand which benefits you may qualify for at no cost to you.
So make the call today. Don't miss out on the benefits you could be eligible for.
Call Plan Select now.
And speaking of Plan Select, are you getting all the benefits you deserve from your Medicare Advantage plan? Many people don't realize their plan may include valuable extras that can save them thousands of dollars every year. Call 877-664-8133 now to see if you qualify. And with the right Medicare Advantage plan, you could receive a gym membership at no cost to help you stay active and healthy. If you need a ride, many plans include transportation services with up to 60 rides per year to your doctor's appointments or pharmacy. We're also told some plans also offer meal delivery programs with up to 28 meals delivered each year at no cost, perfect after a hospital stay or when you just need a little extra help. You may also qualify for an over-the-counter allowance of up to $800 per year for everyday essentials like vitamins, first aid supplies, cold and flu medicine, and dental hygiene products. And that's not all. We're told also that certain plans provide a grocery card with up to $3,600 per year to help pay for healthy food and household essentials. All you have to do is call 877-664-8133 to see if you qualify. And the big question is, are you taking advantage of everything your plan offers? Licensed agents will review your options and help make sure you're getting every benefit available to you. Just call now, 877-664-8133 to speak with a licensed Medicare Advantage plan agent. Let's go from Plan Select to covepure.com/RSBN. You've heard us talk about Cove Pure before, and if the water scares in Flint, Michigan and East Palestine, Ohio weren't enough to get you to make the switch, well, this might. More than 176 million Americans are drinking tap water with PFAs in it. They're those man-made chemicals used in food packaging, non-stick cookware, firefighting foam. Scientists call them forever chemicals because once they're in your body, they stay there. They don't break down, and they're linked to hormone disruption, immune damage, and increased cancer risk. But here's the part that is making people upset. All right, so the EPA set legal limits for PFAS in drinking water back in 2024, but water systems have until 2031 to comply, so that's 5 whole years from now. Until that deadline arrives, the utility can be operating above that legal limit right now and isn't required to notify you, so you're just drinking that tap water. Hopefully not, to be honest. That's why every single household needs Cove Pure, so you have your tap water go through Cove Pure. As the government knows these chemicals are harmful enough to regulate, they're just not making anyone act on it quite yet, which means if you want clean, healthy water, you're going to have to do this yourself. Now, Cove Pure was engineered exactly for this. Unlike the normal pitcher filters that you see at the store, Cove Pure has this Clearwave reverse osmosis technology that's certified to remove up to 99.9% of contaminants, those PFAS, heavy metals, fluoride, and pharmaceuticals, filtering particles hundreds of thousands of times smaller than a single human hair. And the best part about Cove Pure is they make it so easy. It sits right on your countertop. You don't have to drill any holes or call someone in to install it. You just plug it in. And you can even get whatever temperature water you want, hot, cold, or warm, with a tap of a button. So don't wait until 2031. Take control of your water quality right now. Head to covepure.com/RSBN. And because you're a viewer of this broadcast, you'll get $250 off right now. That's covepure.com/RSBN. Drink pure, live pure, covepure.com. If you'd like to follow us on Truth Social, it's at RSBN. How about on X? It's at RSB Network. And if you'd like to follow me on X, it's at Matthew US Media. And on Truth Social, it's at Matthew Alvarez. In the meantime, we have about 15 minutes left in this broadcast. We have a few more things to cover, of course. We're going to talk about manufacturing with the president in the sense of how the American manufacturing is surging. We have a White House press release that we'd like to share with you here. Also, we're going to get to Abby Foronberry. She's the president for Americans for Citizen Voting. We caught up with her earlier in the broadcast. In case you missed it, let's check out some of that interview right now. Let's just talk about some of the common sense, maybe questions some people are having, including myself. When you're a dual citizen, though, is that you renounce the other, but you're still a dual citizenship? How does that work?
I'm not sure. Brazil actually doesn't recognize dual citizenship. And as far as I know, the United States doesn't either, because they actually took my Brazilian passport as part of my citizenship process, which I understand. You know, it gets really dicey, especially if you get into heated political climates. And I think it makes sense, you know, just as I'm not going to invite my next door neighbors to come in and weigh on my family budget, it makes sense that only the people within that home, i.e. America, should be able to weigh in on its decisions.
Speaking of America, so the organization that you're with, the Americans for Citizen Voting, you're talking about informing voters on all of this. Can you talk to us about what you guys have done to help just shed light on that truth?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things we're doing, obviously, is bringing to light the fact that non-citizens are currently voting. I know that, you know, some sides like to be divisive about this, call it a fear-based tactic, et cetera. But the reality is that we have non-citizen voting happening in our nation's capital. DC is one of the cities that currently allows this. And basically, if you allow a non-citizen to vote in these legislative elections, these non-citizens are kind of grandfathered in and allowed to vote in federal elections. And that is what is in our Constitution right now. It's Article 1, Section 2 of the 17th Amendment. A lot of people aren't well versed in the Constitution, myself being one of them. But what we're seeking to do with the U.S. Citizen Voting Amendment is create that definition, that definitive baseline of who has the right to vote in the United States. So we're passing House Resolution, House Joint Resolution 152. I want to make sure I have that correct. It's a one-page document. You can go to uscva.org. People can read this for themselves. There's nothing hidden. There's nothing sideswipey. This is a nonpartisan issue. In fact, it's one of the few 90-10 nonpartisan issues that exist out there. You know, naturalized citizens like myself, Democrats, Republican, overwhelmingly are in support that only a U.S. citizen should vote. And again, a lot of people are under the false assumption that that already exists, and it doesn't. And if we have a moment, I wanted to harp on one other thing, which you mentioned the SAVE Act, and we have gotten lumped in a lot with the SAVE Act, which I understand. There's a lot of press behind it, but the SAVE Act is partisan. You know, Democrats are not necessarily big fans of this. And ultimately, the SAVE Act is about enforcement. So it's requiring proof of citizenship when registering to vote. But ultimately, the SAVE Act can be appealed. You know, it can be removed if political winds shift. What we are trying to do with Joint House Resolution 152 is create this so that it cannot be amended or changed in the future, that it is going to be a U.S. consensus decision that will permanently, you know, ratify our Constitution to state what everybody assumes it already does.
Well put. Thank you for the insight on that. Speaking of insight, you said something about Brazil, and I'm just curious about it because we've interviewed a number of great Brazilians here, Ricardo Martins and others that, you know, just obviously love their country. They're in the United States. They want the best for that nation. But you were saying the different classes that you're brought up in, then you have no way to advance in a different kind of class, obviously different than here in the States. Can you explain that a little bit? Is it just he said, she said, this person was born there, so don't hire them? Or tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So really, it's hard for us to understand because we're afforded so many opportunities naturally just by birth here. But what happened is I came from a very poor family. In fact, my mom likes to joke that we were POR poor because we couldn't afford the other O. Okay. So just very, very different circumstances. The home that my grandmother lived in at one point in time, the poorest person in America would not live in such terrible conditions. So ultimately, if you're a person that grows up not having the means, education is not provided to you, there aren't student loans available to you so that you can get a secondary degree or advance yourself, you're trapped into working. In fact, my mom herself was working full time at age 12. She attended night school just to get a basic education and was working during the day to help support her family. So when you have a system like that, time, money, resources, those things are not available to you. Whereas in the United States, if you're a student that works hard, you do really well in school, you have multiple opportunities for scholarships or through athletics, even being able to take out a student loan. So that's the kind of thing where, because my family did so well here, my mom married my stepdad, who's an American, and he raised me, from the time I was 6. And because they did so well here, they were able to provide things for my family in Brazil that we would not have had otherwise. So my aunt was able to come to the United States with a visa. She was able to study English. That afforded her exponential opportunities for work in Brazil. My grandmother was moved to a nice condo in a safe place. So, I understand the pull, the allure, the love of this country. And I think that's all the more reason why people need to join within the right parameters and truly know what it means to be an American.
100%. The president of Americans for Citizen Voting, Abby Foronberry, thank you for your insight and spending your time with us here on Right Side this afternoon.
Thank you for your time.
Definitely. Meantime, we're right in the middle of peak allergy season, and for a lot of people, it's hitting hard right now. Congestion, fatigue, and that rundown feeling that seems to come out of nowhere. And it's not just the symptoms, it's how it affects everything else, your sleep, your energy, your focus throughout the day. Most of the time, it hits before you've had a chance to prepare. It's something we see year after year. That's why more Americans are starting to prepare ahead instead of reacting at the last minute. Now, with All Family Pharmacy, you can get access to common allergy medications like nasal sprays and inhalers, along with other prescriptions people rely on this time of year. And the process is simple. You go online, you fill out a quick medical form, a licensed doctor reviews it, and if appropriate, your medication ships straight to your door. That online site is allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. No extra steps. There's no running around. It's just a simpler way to handle allergy season and have what you need on hand. So visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use that RSBN code, RSBN10, to save that 10% today. allfamilypharmacy.com. RSBN 10 at checkout. Also, Birch Gold Group, when the dollar's convertibility into gold ended back in the 70s, 1971 to be exact, gold was fixed at $35 an ounce. And if you fast forward to today, the US dollar has lost more than 85% of its purchasing power. Gold, on the other hand, has increased in value by more than 12,000%. That's why central banks and others out there are buying gold at record levels. At RSBN, we encourage you to consider diversifying your savings with physical gold from Birch Gold Group, but it starts with education. Birch Gold just announced their Learn and Earn Precious Metals event. This free online event rewards you for learning the basics of investing in precious metals. So you can sign up to get free silver on your next purchase, so you get even larger incentives as you go. So the more you learn, the more you can earn. But you must act now, as this special event only runs for 8 more days until April 30th. The dollar lost its anchor in 1971. You don't have to lose yours. Text the word Trump to the number you see there on your screen, 989898, to join Birch Gold's Learn and Earn Precious Metals event. This is by April 30th. Text Trump to 989898. All right, we're about 8-9 minutes away from the top of the hour, as we know that the president has a number of policy meetings today at the White House, all closed to the press. If there's any breaking news, developing news, anything like that, we'll be here for it, or at least we'll be definitely uploading it. Meantime, from the White House, a recent press release about American manufacturing. Under President Donald J. Trump's strong leadership, American manufacturing is surging. After years of career politicians selling out American workers for cheap foreign labor, the American manufacturing comeback is gaining speed in every part of the country. The White House saying the numbers don't lie. American industry is winning again for the 3rd month in a row. The manufacturing sector is growing as key indicators show broad strength. The Institute for Supply Management's Key Manufacturing Index, which tracks factory activity across the country, registered the sector's third straight month of expansion for its highest reading since 2022. The White House saying President Trump promised to bring manufacturing back to America, and his policies are delivering the largest reshoring wave in American history as companies invest trillions to build and expand here at home. So that is a release that's out from the White House. Of course, you could probably track that on X, on Truth Social, and out there whenever we hear from various officials from the White House. Let's switch our focus now to Operation Epic Fury. Sentcom has posted a new video titled U.S. Central Command Forces Are Ready. Take a look at clip number 3.
We're rearming. We're retooling and we're adjusting our tactics, techniques, and procedures. There's no military in the world that adjusts like we do, and that's exactly what we're doing right now during the ceasefire.
And that video, of course, from the Department of War, specifically the United States Central Command. Also, there are new advancements in our airspace here at home, thanks to the Department of Transportation. Let's take a look at a new video from the White House, specifically clip number 6.
Think how far we've come with software developments. Let's watch a video on software, national airspace. Check it out.
All right, so some advancements there at the FAA, and of course that affects, air traffic control and all of the properties there when it comes to airspace. Also, just in to the newsroom now, as we check X, we see that Carolyn Levitt is speaking to one of the reporters for CBS News. Jennifer Jacobs said, Iran still has more military capacity than Trump administration is admitting publicly, sources tell CBS News. Well, Carolyn Levitt said 9 minutes ago, quote, the legacy media is doing PR for the Iranian regime again. The truth is that under President Trump's leadership, the U.S. military decimated the Iran's regime capability in just 38 days. Iran's defense industrial base was almost completely destroyed. Carolyn Levitt responding to a CBS News report saying Iran's ability to build and stockpile ballistic missiles and long-range drones has been set back by years. The vast majority of Iran's ballistic missiles, launcher vehicles, and long-range attack drones were destroyed. In closing, Carolyn says the Iranian Navy was annihilated with more than 150 of their ships sunk. And Iran's air forces are functionally and operationally irrelevant now. X is quite interesting, so is Truth Social. You can just respond right away to a report that's out there. All right, well, it is 1:58, approaching that 2 o'clock hour. Thanks so much for live streaming in with us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Of course, we're here for you when it comes to the news of the day, but also covering various events. President Trump, of course, will be in China in mid-May, May 14th and the 15th, as he and the First Lady will be traveling there to meet with President Xi Jinping. Of course, you can find that coverage right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. On top of that, I'm still looking forward to seeing what date and where that RNC midterm event is going to be taking place. There's going to be that convention. You remember during the presidential cycles, we have the RNC convention. Well, there's this midterm RNC convention going to happen. I believe it's going to be during the summer. That's usually when the conventions happen. Of course, the November 3rd election is slowly getting closer, but a lot of wins to have from now until then as we want to see the Save America Act passed. I know that's a really uphill climb at this point. I can share why, but maybe we'll share that for another broadcast as we're wrapping up here in just a minute. It just needs to end the filibuster, but I don't think it's going to happen. That's just my opinion, but we'll see what happens. Also, we know, of course, on June 14th, outside that White House right there on the South Lawn, that huge UFC fight, that's going to be quite cool to see. That's Flag Day. It happens to be President Trump's birthday on the 14th. And then, of course, July 4th, our country turns 250 years young. If you're really into the America 250 thing, just follow America 250 on X, follow Freedom 250 as well. Maybe check out where a Freedom truck is or a Freedom plane. The Freedom plane flying around with various U.S. archives, national archives from our founding. There's a number of cities that plane stops, and it actually says Freedom Plane 250 on it. Pretty cool stuff. It's 2 o'clock on the East Coast. Thanks so much for joining us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's go to mypillow.com/RSBN. The great warehouse moving sale. Save up to 80% on a number of awesome products right there. Check them out. mypillow.com/RSBN. Also, if you'd like to donate to Right Side, you could do so right there. RSBNetwork.com/donate. RSBNetwork.com/donate. We have some snail mail address here for you. Let me get to that real quick, as we have a number of donors at the network that like to send the checks right to our P.O. box. So let's go to that right now. 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama 36830. Hope you have a good rest of your Wednesday. If there's any breaking news, we'll see each other again right here at the headquarters of Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Matthew Alvarez. We'll see you again soon.